What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Talk of the Tundra, your Green Bay Packers podcast, a proud partner of the Eurostep Podcast Network and the Blue Wire family. As always, I'm your host Newmock, and joining me for a preview podcast with against the Carolina Panthers is my lovely co-host Jordan Tresky. Jordan, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Doing great because we have a special guest tonight. It's our dearest GSPN co-host, Andrew Snyder, I should say formerly, famously Carolina Panthers fan. Andrew, how are you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Actually, if we're talking about how I'm doing as it relates to the Carolina Panthers, in a word, terrible. In two words, down bad. In a phrase, we are in hell. Um, but I'm happy to join the podcast. I mean, I think this is my third appearance. I was on for over-unders in season one. I was on for a draft episode, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And now, returning. Always great to be a guest on your podcast. Anytime anyone comes up to me in public and says, Talk of the Tundra guys, what are they like off mic? I just say that you're class acts and you're professionals and you just play the game the right way. So honored to be here. Honored to be here.
We love ball.
We do love ball. Andrew, for the pod listeners, wearing a Cam Newton home jersey.
This is the blue alternates that I think should be mixed in an appropriate amount because they look great because they're like a tealish blue, not really teal, but they're like a blue that can represent the tears of the fan base.
Oh no,
as they long for a playoff appearance because it's been a while since David Tepper bought the team, but I had to represent, I will bail on a sports fandom, but only for organizationally endorsed racism and criminal activity. Those are the only things that'll make me bail on fandoms. For better or worse, I am a Carolina Panthers fan.
Surely there's never been a domestic violence issue in the NFL called the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Listen, I'm just trying to recruit a new Packers fan.
Workplace issues when Jerry Richardson was the owner, and then
It's true. Yeah,
he built a statue of himself. They toppled it like with Saddam many years ago during the Iraq War. It was a whole thing.
We're off to a fast start here, and I love it. I love the energy. Before we get into that Carolina Panthers Green Bay Packers matchup and a preview, we have some cheeses to hand out, Jordan. And be prepared, Andrew, because I will be asking your input on at least one of these. So, up for cheese this week after the very sad loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is Jordan Love, 29-39, 284 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, and a 111 passer rating. Dontavion Wicks, 6 catches on 7 targets for 94 yards. Jaden Reed, 6 catches on 8 targets for 52 yards and a touchdown. Tucker Kraft, 4 catches on all 4 of his targets, 57 yards and a touchdown. JJ Enagbare, who had 2 tackles, both of which were solo, 1 sack, including a forced fumble he recovered himself. And Kenny Clark, 4 tackles, 3 of which were solo, 2 tackles for a loss, 2 sacks, 2 hits, and a pass defended. So, I'm saying first and foremost, I think we have to have both of the defensive players there because the offense wasn't the most inspiring. And
wait, what?
The offense wasn't the most inspiring.
So you're saying 2 defensive players?
Because neither of them are in the secondary.
Interesting.
I know.
I would have thought you were going to go 2 offense, 1 defense.
Nope. I've decided that Kenny Clark and JJ Enagbare can't cover Mike Evans and Chris Godwin in zone, and nor should they. So they're not being
that is true.
Not being docked for it. So I want to know who you think the last one should be, Jordan. And I'm curious as to what you think, Andrew, if you watched the game on Sunday, which I put you on the spot here.
I did watch the game. Rewarding this defense for anything after that does feel a little wrong.
Listen, the 2 guys are talking about each had sacks and Kenny Clark had 2 sacks, and then JJ Enagbare had a sack and a forced fumble. Like, I think that's definitely cheeseworthy when no one else on the defense really deserved one, as well as, like, nothing about the offense is, like, super duper inspiring out of that game for me.
That's a really good point
Not
because
Love?
if they had not forced that fumble, then Baker Mayfield could have thrown for a fifth touchdown.
That
So
was
that's a good
yes,
point. Yeah.
yeah. You didn't think Love is inspiring?
Not like mind blowing, no. Like he's had better
No, but I thought it was
games.
a really good game.
I thought he missed a lot of easy throws that he should have had.
Yes, the first drive, yes, but
I mean, I think like he's had better games, frankly. Like I think we've given out cheeses for
yes.
better games and not given him cheeses
So
for
would you
games like
tilt
this.
Dontavian Wicks over Jordan Love?
I would do that. I think my current pick is either Wicks or Kraft.
See, my thought process going into this is Jordan Love, Dontavian Wicks, and
Because like that, this is where the issue is for me, right? It's hard to pick between those those two defensive guys when I think they both deserve one. As opposed to Jaden Reed has this like has had this line before the season already.
yeah,
Same thing with Jordan Love. Like we've probably given a cheese for something around this when he looked better. I just think he didn't look as good as he's looked in weeks past during this game. Like he limited a lot of the turnover worthy throws, but I come out of the game thinking he probably played fine. If he plays like that for his career, it's pretty good. But I think the bar for Jordan Love cheese has been higher than how he played
it's true.
on Sunday. Like the stats are there, of course, but that's also because he threw it 40 times.
Yeah,
Like if they actually use Aaron Jones and any sort of running game, maybe they win that game a little better since most of the offense is set up by the running, and then they play action and roll out some things like that to get Jordan Love some more time. But yeah, if you're want to cape for Jordan Love as being the only offensive player to get cheese this week, I'm also up for negotiation if you really want to convince me about JJ or Kenny. But it's going to take a pretty solid.
it's hard because the difference in snaps is like really like here I can pull it up on PFF right now, but the difference in snaps between the two is like very stark.
Between
So
JJ and Kenny Clark.
do you reward 25 snaps for JJ? Kenny Clark, what do you have? 44. That's actually not as much as I thought it was gonna be.
I mean, talk about, I guess, impact plays. It's kind of
That's the
like
thing is you got to reward the impact plays.
we gave one to Keyshawn Nixon, I think, right? When he had the interception
We
against the
did.
Chiefs. So I think that's the same idea, right? Like Keyshawn probably played a little more than JJ did in this game. But,
I'm gonna say it. JJ and Anibari. Cheese lock.
okay. So then do you give one to Kenny, who had 2 sacks in a game? Who had 2 sacks and 2 QB hits. I'm not sure if that's the same 2 hits or if it's separate. You know what I mean? I forget how. So I forget if PFF counts like hits as sacks as the same tackle. So if he gets a sack, does it also count as a hit? Is my question.
I don't think they do.
Okay. So then he was in the
Multiple plays.
pocket and multiple plays and got home twice, including 2 other tackles for loss. Like I just think that's one of the better games he's had this year. Like one of the better games he's had this year.
You know, you swung me.
That's what I'm saying. Like
You swung me.
the front 4 or 5 of the like Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness, TJ Slayton, Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, and JJ Anibare weren't the reason the Packers lost this game. It was
No.
everything from the linebackers back
Yeah.
and Joe Barry. And so that's why I think they like JJ Anibare and Kenny Clark for sure get cheeses, and then I'm just mulling over who I want on offense. But I'll let you pick who you want, considering I kind of I dictated what the 2 defensive players would be, or would get one.
I would honestly. I thought Wicks was a lot like probably my first lock.
I'm fine with that. Is this
I
the best
will
game of the season?
say- Oh yeah. I don't think he had any. Sorry, I'm looking up a stat and I'm losing my train of thought as I speak.
You're good.
Uh, I don't think he's had a. I think this is easily his best. I'm looking at Jordan Love's. His passer rating was the sixth highest this year.
for
So
for
yeah,
him.
to your point of we've seen better from Jordan Love. It's not necessarily wrong. Second
Most
highest completion percentage on the year.
most receptions for Dante Van Wicks and most yards for him.
Give it to him. Cheese lock him.
Yeah. So Wicks,
Pop it and lock it.
Enigbare, and Kenny Clark.
Yeah.
Perfect. Andrew, good with
Not,
that?
not how I thought that cheeseburger was going to go, but we did it.
Andrew, is that
I
clear?
think you guys did great work there. And
Thank you.
I wholeheartedly approve of your dairy choices in this matter.
Thank you. I had I had a sample today at Whole Foods going to get some salmon for dinner. And they had some Gruyere as a little sample piece. Ooh, it's creamy and delicious.
Sean
Go ahead. Finish it.
Guerrieri.
Yeah, I like to do a mac and cheese with some bechamel, some shells,
Ooh.
and then grate some sharp cheddar, some Gruyere, and then one more melter. That third one I like to mix it up, and then a little Parmesan at the end.
Ooh,
Mix it up.
I love
Also,
that.
in the bechamel, you mix in some hot mustard, and you don't really taste it, but it's there, and it provides the tang you need. But anyway.
The amount of times I've heard people put mustard in a recipe and they go, but you're not going to taste it. This is like way too many. Like all the barbecue TikTok videos, all the stuff like that.
It's
Like
in a lot of barbecue things.
it's a binder,
Not that
Jordan.
Yeah, it is. Not that I know.
It brings people together. It really ties the room together like a nice throw rug, I think.
We're off the rails, but I'm curious. What is your guys' opinion on Dijon mustard?
Positive.
Good.
I'm a fan of most mustards.
Jordan? I'm not. I think I am a strictly yellow mustard person. I'm pretty boring
I hope-
mustard wise.
I like to make chicken salad with QP mayo and a little bit of Dijon mustard.
I saw that picture in the Discord. So go join the Discord if you want to see the pictures of Andrew's mayo. Anyways,
Yeah, we're trying to summon a Kobe Mayo trade for Corbin Burns from the Orioles. He's a third baseman prospect,
And-
so that's
and
what we're
w-
trying to summon.
And what podcast would you possibly listen to that on? Or could I listen to this analysis about?
Cruising for a Bruising, GSPN.info. Find all the info there. Me and Adam McGee talking ball. But back to you, Numac, for some football talk with some football guys, and also me.
Some new. I just read Jordan's sentence in the notes. It just says Joe Barry defends his life.
Yes, yes, he did. That's how every tweet, every X post that I saw of Joe Barry's press conference today was literally Joe Barry being like, "I am who I am. What can I say?" Like, it was like, okay,
Yeah, we're not going to spend too long on this. We kind of talked about it on Sunday as well, but the talk of the town and Town has been
talking about Tundra even.
talk of the tundra even has been just why is Joe Barry still the defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers? And I think the entire organization can collectively answer as a big shrug. Like the headline from this Matt Schneeman article is Packers defensive coordinator Joe Barry sounds like a coach who knows what fate might await him. And I think that's a kind of a perfect encapsulation of what's going on up there. Like I think everyone sees the I guess writing in big Sharpie on the wall, and it's trending towards Joe Barry being fired, especially if they miss the playoffs. Like if they kind of sneak into the playoffs with help from their friends around the NFL, then it kind of just softens that blow for one more week and
It
or one more
shouldn't.
game. But yeah, it shouldn't. He definitely should be gone regardless, and I think that's kind of the line Packers fans are walking right now is: do you want to win out to possibly go to the playoffs with this team, or do you want to lose to ensure that Joe Barry loses his job, which is a shitty thing to root for, but as fans of a sports team, it's stuff we have to do sometimes.
Well, you always do the consolation prize. If it doesn't go your way, oh, let's tank for the biggest. We were doing this openly on the podcast earlier in the season,
Right.
where the Packers were not playing well, and you're like, oh, maybe they can have the highest draft pick of my lifetime. Like it's very you try to find the best way possible or pin a scapegoat on it. And
Right.
it's not that Joe Barry is not a deserving scapegoat. He fully is. This team had a better shot at the playoffs 2 weeks ago than it did at any point last year.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they were in the driver's seat to compete for a playoff berth, to clinch a playoff berth, and they have fumbled it to giving Tommy DeVito and Baker Mayfield two straight
Career
NFC,
days.
yeah, NFC Offensive Player of the Week or whatever that is.
Right.
So yeah, it's like it's not to beat a dead horse, but it's just so obvious, especially after a game like that where your head coach is openly like trying to shutting down so he doesn't have to defend Joe Barry and have that get attached to him because it's just what it is. This is a merit performance. You know what I mean? If your unit that you're coordinated to coach, as he expertly was talking about today, is not performing well, it's gonna fall on you. That's what it is, and that's what it'll always be.
Andrew, as an expert in coaching firings, unfortunately,
Jeez.
what are Packers fans justified in this, or do we have it a little bit sweeter than we might think we do?
I think they are justified, because it's been a multi-year thing and a multi-year conversation that I see you guys have all the time, not just on the podcast, but in the Discord. And obviously, being the host of a Milwaukee Brewers podcast and just also loving the Bucks and like watching every Bucks game I can and trying to stay up to date on that conversation, I'm gonna get some Packers stuff mixed in, and like it's just the same story. The Tommy DeVito one is worse than last week, even though I know Baker had like a
Yes.
perfect passer rating. I'm on the Baker is back bandwagon because I like the guy a lot. And I thought Matt Rule and David Tepper had ruined his career, but then you go spend a few weeks with Sean McVay, and now I think he's probably proving that he can be a starter in the NFL for the next few years. I mean, 28 TDs, 8 interceptions. He had a few tough weeks coming into that game, and then like looked like he was on fire, had a great game.
Yeah.
But DeVito, I mean, is a guy just trying to cash in on his 15 minutes of fame and like sell chicken cutlets or whatever was happening with the branding stuff that
And,
came out today.
and apparently, yeah, trying to strong arm a pizza chain.
Like letting that guy
DiGiorno, is
carve
that
you
what
up,
he's strong arming?
it
God
might be. Like
damn.
if Bryce Young carves up the Packers this weekend, that's a problem. And I know we'll talk about this later, but like this organization, despite winning last week on a last second field goal, 2 minute drill down the field, hand claps for Bryce there. The offensive line is terrible. The skill positions are problematic. And like Bryce clearly looks like a guy who's still trying to figure it out. And that discussion about whether or not he will long term is still ways away, but you can't let a quarterback carve you up the third week in a row, especially with a team playing for nothing when you're still in a playoff race somehow. Like so I think that was my long way of answering your question that yes, Packers fans are justified in wanting this guy's resume in the paper shredder.
Preferably, yeah. But yeah, we'll get more into the matchup here in a little bit. But some more news and notes. Packers designated my young son, Emmanuel Wilson, off of or designated to return from IR. Him, Luke Musgrave, and Luke Tenuta have all been designated for return. So with that timing, it kind of makes sense that they have 3 weeks to do it, and there's 3 weeks left in the season. So maybe we'll see Emmanuel Wilson back. Matt LaFleur had good things to say about Wilson this week, saying that he's miles and light years ahead of where he was before his injury. Just noting that he's been locked in during his injury to try and improve and understand NFL offense a little better than he would as a player that had only played in like 5 games up until his injury. Luke Musgrave, there's some rumblings that he might be back for the game next weekend against the Vikings. So shout out those 2 tight end sets should we get them. Coming back from a lacerated kidney like a month after you do it is
What?
insano hours.
What?
I'd be down for my life if I lacerated a kidney, not playing football. And then Luke Tenuta who had started the year off on IR and was a organizational favorite. Maybe he gets some reps as this year comes to a close rather than punting on the whole year, but we shall see with him as well. So, in other injury news, Matt LaFleur shared that Packers miscalculated Jair Alexander's injury recovery, and that is a factor in why he hasn't been playing despite practicing for the last few weeks. The biggest thing for Jair right now is tackling, according to him, and that he's deemed himself week to week. So I think there is a real possibility that he might not play the rest of the year if he just can't shake whatever back injury is ailing him. And back injury is notoriously finicky and take a while to recover. So if they're in a place where they don't need him and they just keep playing Corey Ballantyne, Carrington Valentine, Keyshawn Nixon, and Eric Stokes, then they might just do that and let him get healthy for next year.
Yeah, there might be 3 games left. I don't really anticipate.
See the urgency in getting him back.
Yeah, especially
I think the only way they would
tackling is pretty important.
Yeah,
the Packers haven't reinforced that, but the tackling is pretty important.
Yeah, you wouldn't know by their team mantra and how they tackle throughout the year, but it is important.
Yeah.
I think the only way we might see him this week or this year is if like the week 18 game against the Bears like matters, and if like they win it, they're in kind of thing. Which I don't know if they still have that option, but I think that might be the only scenario in which we for sure might see Jair this year. And then one more piece of drama in the Packers sphere. Devondre Campbell tweeted that he will no longer play hurt and did not participate in Wednesday's practice. I think a lot of this stemmed from being thrown into coverage against receivers that he has no business covering, and reporters and people and coaches and people like us talking about how it just isn't there for him. He can't be covering those guys because his speed isn't there anymore, but he has been playing hurt. So it's kind of like, I'm guessing, quite frustrating for Devondre to see criticism when he's been nursing an ankle injury for the past, 2 months, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, he was on IR too.
Yeah.
So that's something that you don't, during the middle of the season, you don't just like magically like, oh, it's all better. I don't feel anything anymore, kind of thing like that.
Right.
He may feel that in other ways, considering his Twitter outburst. But yeah, that certainly seems like a guy that's been frustrated. And it's been,
I think
2 straight years.
Yeah, I think it being 2 straight years is kind of what's the most frustrating for him. Like after having a breakout year and earning himself a contract, he had an injury plagued last year, and now an injury plagued this year. Like I'm guessing he's just kind of over being hurt all the time.
Yeah,
which is understandable. So, but we'll get more on the injury report in just a minute. Time to dive in to this Panthers-Packers series. The Packers are 10-6 against the Panthers lifetime. The lone playoff meeting between them was when the two franchises met in 1996 in the NFC Championship game, which the Packers won 30-13 to advance the Super Bowl. Andrew might have been 4, I think, if I have your age right. 96.
So that game was played in 1990. That would have been in 1997 for the game,
yes.
though, right?
Yeah.
So I would have been 5. Just a little bit too early for me to have that as a core memory. I think I've said on a Bucks podcast before, my first sports memory was the Last Dance finals. So the following year. So, but I do, in the aftermath of that, my dad being a Panthers fan, I definitely knew of that game, that loss, that kind of surprising run to get even that far for the Panthers so early in their beginnings as a franchise.
Their existence.
Yeah, their existence. That's the word I was looking for.
Tom Capers, Kerry Collins, who I felt like was the embodiment of Skoal chewing tobacco during that time.
That sounds about right. Kevin Green was a Panther at that point, right?
Yes, he was. Yeah, he was a pain in the butt. I remember him.
Sure was.
That's what a crazy sentence I just heard about Kerry Collins being the face of Skoal chewing tobacco.
If you look at a picture of Kerry Collins...
I understand. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just laughing quite hard at the mention of it. The Packers are 5-4 when playing in Carolina, including having lost the last two meetings. Are one of those last two meetings the Cam Newton game where he was talking to Clay Matthews, watching film?
I believe so.
I think that was like the second of the last two meetings, I'd imagine, something like that. But
And the other one was the game that Aaron Rodgers came back late. 'Cause he
oh
was
yeah,
hurt
yep.
during the Brett Hundley year.
God.
Funny how those things kind of just follow Aaron Rodgers. He's living another Brett Hundley year just in New York.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, those I have grown to really be suspect of Packers at Panthers games. I've never. It's rare where the Packers have done well in
Well,
Carolina.
it's rare that the Packers go south of the Mason-Dixon line and do well.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
Like,
Miami might be the exception, but there's still been.
I mean,
some
even
champions.
then they've had to come back. They had to come back at the end of the last time they played in Miami. They had
Yeah.
the fake spike touchdown to Jordy Nelson.
Yeah,
Like, but then Tampa Bay, I think they win 2 years ago in Tampa. Yeah, no, last year.
Last year, barely.
Yeah, last year barely.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Carolina Panthers currently 2-12, own the top spot in the draft, but they don't own the pick, sadly. Sorry, Andrew. They're coming off of good news, a 9-7 win in which there were tens of people there during a downpour of a football game. But a
What
9-7
was
Pretty
your-
sure both their wins were in the rain.
Yeah.
a
What was
9-7
your
win over the
reaction
Falcons.
seeing them win a game 9-7?
The joke was on me because I was actually watching it. Like, despite telling myself I should just opt out of all of these games, I find myself watching most of every game just because I'm like, this is what I deserve. This is what God has put in front of me. So I'm gonna watch it. And then the drive itself, I think Bryce Young did some nice things in the rain. I think Chuba Hubbard got some nice yards on the ground. Maybe Miles Sanders on that drive as well. I think there was a nice Mingo catch. Maybe Adam Thielen. I can't quite remember. But then once they got it to the 2 or the 5, they kept having to take knees to run the clock down to kick the last second field goal. And I was like, it's going to slip on the wet turf. It's going to. That's what's going to happen. Eddie Pinheiro, who has been very reliable as a Panther, is going to fall on national television and not even get a kickoff. and then everything went off without a hitch. But it felt like I was doing something harmful to my body. And I don't even know if I enjoyed the victory, but I was just like, well, counts as a W in the scorebook. Let's on to Green Bay, or on to Green Bay next week in Charlotte.
That's very funny. I mean, you're a football fan. Like, it's just watching your team play bad games is kind of like your curse as a fan because there's only 17 of them. Like, you could either just not watch it and not watch football for a year, or you could just suffer in silence and hope that that those wins come along.
I do want to say one thing, and this has turned out to be just an absolute masterclass on my part. So I have season tickets, and so middle half of this year when the bill was due, that was when I was between jobs. I'd been laid off earlier in the year, and I had a friend who was like, why don't I just buy them from you this year? And I was like, all right. So, sell them to him in full.
Somebody bought your season tickets.
Yes, before the season started.
Oh no.
And so
Oh.
I'll re-up next year and hope things are better. I was in a financial bind at that time. And I don't think I can ever talk to that person again because they would probably
You can.
threaten violence against me. And I feel so bad, but it's not my fault. It's David Tepper. It's Frank Reich. It's
Who's the
everybody.
GM? What's his name? Scott
Fitterer, and
Fitterer.
him still having a job right now is insane to me. They should have sent him packing with Reich. Bro, not saying Bryce Young is officially done and can't be a competent starter in this league. That book is still to be written. But the bare minimum we know is you botched that pick and you botched that trade. So like,
Yeah.
see you, bud. Like he should have to eat Christmas dinner by himself in the bowels of Bank of America Stadium.
Yeah, I think you just definitely have to have like in a situation like that, you just have to fire him, even though it's a move I understand the idea. If you lose it that badly, I think it just costs you your job no matter what.
And it's funny because obviously in football with the salary cap, having the richest owner doesn't really work for you in the way it might work for you in baseball. We get mad as Brewers fans at Mark Atanasio for some of the payrolls he comes out with, but he hires good people. Matt Arnold, David Stearns before him, like the coaching staff and the scouting department, the pitching lab, catching lab, whoever, analytics team, hires good people and lets them do their job and they do a good job. David Tepper can't even hire the right people, and he can't spend his way out of it with his big money bags that he has from whatever venture capital life he lives. This is a guy who has a pair of brass testicles on his desk. Apparently, that's a thing that's been reported. He should not get to put those on his desk anymore. He should have to remove them after what he has done to this franchise. And they have not made the playoffs since he bought the team. Obviously, the previous owner was forced to sell for very legitimate reasons. So I'm glad that he's dead now. But I'm glad that he was not the owner of the franchise the last several years. But David Tepper has absolutely run this team into the ground and just ruined my falls and my winters. And I think he's just a terrible, terrible, terrible owner, and should not be allowed to attend NFL games, let alone make decisions for teams. I'm taking this too far. I apologize.
Well, tell us how you really feel.
There is something.
I like the guy.
There is something very interesting about this franchise with, for lack of a better word, testicles. Because I remember when the statue of Jerry Richardson, there's very pronounced testicles on one of the Panthers.
I think those are still there.
Is that where
They didn't- they didn't-
Tepper put them on his
They
desk? Is that
they
those?
didn't neuter the bronze panther. I'm surprised at this
No.
development.
No.
Um,
Also, Scott Fitterer's wife.
Hold
I've seen how
Hold on.
I was seeing how long Scott Fitterer was in his current position. He's been there for 3 years. That's crazy. First off,
and he's already made so many terrible decisions. That's
Yes.
impressive, honestly, to make that
Yes.
many bad decisions.
his wife's name is Cherish, which is an awful name. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, May 2018, Tepper buys the Panthers. 2018 season, they go 7-9. 2019, 5-11. 2020, 5-11. 2021, 5-12. 2022, 7-10, which only got that competent because Steve Wilkes went out there and did his best to make the team a passable excuse for an NFL team after Matt Rule's terribleness was on display for a few seasons. I almost cursed there. Caught myself. Told you, Newmark, I would have the restraint not to. And then
Proud of
this
you.
season, obviously, 2-12. Coaches inherited Ron Rivera. Obviously, fired him midseason in 2019, I believe. Perry Fuel, the interim there, hires Matt Rule, pays him a bunch of money for whatever reason because he coached Baylor and Temple. Who cares? Fires Rule. Wilkes obviously is the interim.
He broke the rules.
Does a good job like shepherding that ship to the completion of the season. Doesn't get the job. Instead, they hire Frank Reich and then fire him mid-season again. Chris Tabor, who I just learned was a person when he took over as the interim coach this season. The degree of ineptitude, trading a haul of draft capital and DJ Moore to the Bears for the number one pick in a draft where going into it, folks said there's no real number one quarterback, but it's probably Bryce Young or CJ Stroud. And it turns out there was one. It was CJ Stroud, and he's not the one they took. Just like it's like
Wait, okay,
you-
so I know you're feeling it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
If they had just made the wrong decision with the quarterback, I feel like that would be more livable. Like you're not going to get even that is a franchise altering position. It's the fact that they doubled down on it with trading off how many picks and a very good receiver at that. Like I don't know, that's crazy.
To be
That's I
fair,
think
to be, I guess, devil's advocate, if they don't make the trade, they don't have the opportunity to make the pick in the first place.
And I was
oh, of course, yeah.
so, so if you go and listen to our draft episode, I think it was me and everyone in the chat and you guys and all the other guests being like, all right, the Panthers did it. They made the right pick. They got Bryce Young. And then we were all wrong on that because draft experts are liars and they don't know what they're talking about. And we should not trust their like lists. When the Athletic or any other place comes out with a list, we just shouldn't trust it because they don't know what they're talking about. Clearly, 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 clearly.
To be fair, again,
Where
an NFL team had to pick between an Ohio State QB and an Alabama QB. That's hardly ever a winning situation.
Yeah.
Like
I think though,
CJ Stroud might be the first Ohio State quarterback in a very long time to be something real.
It's a
But I think
Heisman. It's a
I think that
Heisman guy
narrative is fake.
versus. Hmm.
because it's been
No.
under different coaching regimes. Like what? Why Ohio State? Why did that narrative? Is it just happenstance, or is it something about a system they run? I don't know. I thought Stroud looked pretty good in that
Right.
system, and then I let people convince me that Bryce Young was the guy, and they lied to me, and now I feel stupid.
I think that
But yeah,
people,
so-
a lot of QBs have looked good in the Ohio State system. Like Justin Fields is a great example, just of a quarterback that looked really good at Ohio State and that now has not exactly turned out at in Chicago. But I think you go back to like Cardale Jones wasn't this huge prospect or anything, but he was very good at Ohio State and then was barely passable as a quarterback in the NFL. And so it's not a insignificant narrative to push, but I think there was something different about Stroud that
looking looking back on it, I think I let myself, like the experts, get caught up too much in that aspect of the player evaluation. And so if you're saying, can CJ Stroud, who looks like and throws like the prototypical franchise QB, can he be the outlier for Ohio State quarterbacks? Or can Bryce Young be the outlier for guys his size? I think I probably, and a lot of the experts, swung too far in the Bryce Young is the outlier for his size rather than, well, let's evaluate CJ Stroud for what he is as a QB and not think about all the guys that have looked good playing for Ohio State and then flopped in the NFL. And, you know,
So I guess
like Jordan, like you said, making that decision is understandable had you not sent a haul of picks to Chicago.
Yeah.
right. So I guess I'll just start there, Andrew. Obviously, you watch more of the Panthers and than we do, and than most of the NFL does. There's been the narrative that Bryce Young has looked bad this year, and that Carolina like got the pick wrong, 15 games into C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young's careers respectively. For you, has it actually been as bad as advertised? For like watching the games and just watching him play. 'Cause I know like early on in the season he made when he played the Falcons the first time he made 2 interceptions that were the same throw.
It was
That-
week one.
Yeah. And so like that's a week 1 thing, right? Like that's understandable. But 9 TDs to 9 interceptions has taken a lot of sacks, but has it been as bad as advertised, or is this more of a piling on of a rookie quarterback who is playing on a team without a lot of help in the first place?
I think it's a little bit of both. And sorry for coming on here as a guest and talking so much on your podcast.
We
I just
want you
realized
to talk as a guest. That's
I
why we
got
have you
fired
here.
up. I got fired up and I just let it rip. It's a little bit of both because it has been bad. I don't want to say come in here and be a homer and say it's been good, but I also don't want to be like too irrational about it because I think he has shown moments. I mean, like for whatever that game last week was, he drove them down the field and they won that football game. That's not nothing. But we've also seen the games like against New Orleans where he was just terrible. Trying to think of some of the other games that were just truly atrocious. Those two picks in the Falcons game were bad because it's not learning from the mistake you made on the first pick, but also, that was week one. So I think we tended as Panthers fans to overlook that for a bit. Uh, One thing that is his fault, but also is not his fault just because the O line has been terrible and he's being pressured so often, is he had the tendency to hold on to the ball too long. And I think that leads to sacks or last ditch throws or fumbles when he really just needs to like either get the ball out quickly, and that's tough because Panthers receivers do not get separation. I think there was a stat in the middle of the season that showed that they were like worse in the league at getting separation from corners or whoever's guarding them. So kind of is what it is from that standpoint because he's got a rock and a hard place in terms of his options when he's dropping back. I mean, sacked 3 times against Atlanta, 4 times against New Orleans, 4 times against Tampa, 4 times against Tennessee, 7 times against Dallas, 6 times in a win against Houston, 5 times against the Vikings. So he's running for his life seemingly more often than not. And it just makes it very tough to evaluate. But that being said, you'd still like to see him adjust to his situation a little more and be a guy that can come out and not necessarily win you games, but make winning plays to bail you out of situations. So I'm not holding the season against him by any means because of that, but I would have liked to see him kind of make some adjustments like Jordan Love has done this season. I think that Chiefs game is such a big indicator of the development that Love has had this season. And obviously he's further along into his career, although it is his first season as a starter. So I think what I'll be looking for next year with a new coaching staff is him learning from those mistakes and adjusting the same way we want an NBA coach to adjust. Okay, the other team's offense is showing me this. The other team's defense is showing me this. How can I work within the system that I'm in and the things that are stacked against me to at least make passable plays that are keeping us in ball games? And I mean, the other thing that I shouldn't hold against him is his play callers swapped back and forth. I think 4 times in total of changing. It's been 2 guys. So Reich was calling the plays. They switched to Thomas Brown. They switched back to Reich, and then they fired Reich. So now it's Thomas Brown calling the plays again. So everything has been set up against them, but I don't want to say it hasn't been bad because that would be disingenuous when you see what CJ Stroud is doing. And even, I guess, what Richardson was doing before he got hurt in the smallest of small sample sizes.
Right.
And I think even Levis has looked kind of passable, right? So it's when your comparison is the thief of joy, but you kind of have to do that with a quarterback class.
No, absolutely. I think that he's definitely looked the worst out of the starting QBs that they're rookie starting QBs, actual true rookies between, like you said, Richardson, Stroud, and now Levis. I think Levis has looked fine. I don't think it's anything inspiring as he might be something. He could be nothing as kind of a pick. But yeah, I think to your point just about the difference in play calling going between the 2 guys and the specialists just aren't really there. You've got a Chuba Hubbard jersey hanging up in your room there, but between Adam Thielen, Jonathan Mingo, and DJ Chark Jr., the pass catchers for the Panthers just aren't really inspiring for a rookie QB, and that's why I've lauded the Adam Thielen signing. I think without Adam Thielen, that this team looks a lot worse than they do, and it's hard to say. Adam Thielen's nearing 1,000-yard season with Bryce Young. He's been the only guy that can reliably get open and really make a difference for him as a quarterback, and so. Yeah, I don't disagree with what you're saying, and so from a perspective, defensively, has it been a lot of the same mistakes being made? And if he's getting sacked that often, I guess, are you afraid of the Packers front coming up? Because I saw a tweet today for the top pass rush combinations for each team that have been most effective when just rushing for this season, and the Packers are 7th. They have a pressure rate of 55.5, which is, like I said, good for 7th in the NFL, with Devontae Wyatt, Kenny Clark, Preston Smith, and Rashawn Gary. Those 4, when rushing just those four together get a sack 1 in 5 times, and that's on the season. So I guess is that something? I don't want to ask if you're worried about, obviously, because I'd imagine listing off the sack numbers, you're just afraid of Bryce Young getting sacked every week. But is that just something that you kind of have accepted as this year? Is that this line isn't capable of holding up against top tier pass rushers, and I guess defense in general?
Yeah, they did look better last week, but I don't know what to take away from any matchup with Atlanta right now. Um, they've had a good defense, right? It was a 9-7 game, so
Right.
they
It's not a bad
they did their
defense if you
job.
hold them under 10.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just I see Desmond Ritter as quarterback, and I just assume your franchise is bereft of any talent. But that's just me making assumptions about the opposite side of the ball. Uh, I mean, yeah, the O line, Ike Ekwonu, who was a first round draft pick, um, 2 years ago, I think, out of my beloved NC State Wolfpack, uh, has really struggled at left tackle. That was a first round pick, as I said, and that was the guy that was supposed to be the centerpiece of the line. They've also had some injuries on the line, which has seen guys like Nash, Jensen, and Cade Mays get into action when maybe you didn't expect them to play because Chandler Savala and Austin Corbett were supposed to be your right and left guard, and there you go. That's all up in smoke. So it has been a makeshift line from time to time because of those injuries. And so, yeah, that probably is what I'm most worried about going into Sunday's game. It's so funny not having a first round pick because normally when you get to this point in the season, you'd be like, all right, let's go lose, like back up the tank. Who cares anymore? And I know it would still obviously help with later picks being earlier in those rounds, but at this point in the season, like every game is just me being like, what can I see from Bryce Young in terms of development to take going forward rather than the wins and losses. So if they come out and win like last week, I'm like, yeah, we won. Doesn't matter. Who cares? So it's kind of a weird spot to be in. Uh, but with the cushion that we saw Packers DBs giving Buccaneers receivers last week, if the Panthers could protect Bryce Young to a reasonable degree, maybe he can like short pass them to death and push the ball down the field. But what I think is going to happen is Rashawn Gary is going to get like 3 sacks and maybe like knock Bryce Young out of the game in the third quarter or something.
Would not like that just for in
No,
general.
not at all. Um, I had to dig in and find some interesting stats about the Carolina Panthers because there are some, in spite of them being the worst team in the league. Ejiro Evero as the defense coordinator, did he interview with the
He
Packers
did, I believe,
before they hired Joe
before
Barry?
they had Joe
Correct.
Barry.
So he's
He
been
was
kind of
he was one of the ones that like a lot of fans after Joe Barry had been doing bad, been like, why didn't we just hire him? Kind of thing. Like he
yes,
keeps
he's been
getting.
put on this pedestal of like
Yep.
that is the guy that we could have gotten.
Yep.
Um, for all the things that you want to talk about the Panthers and struggles that they've had this year, I found it really interesting. And let me bring up these notes. They have allowed the fewest total yards after a catch this season, and they allow the third fewest receiving yards to opposing wideouts. So it's not like this defense, like Brian Burns is obviously like the headlining guy. Shaq Thompson is a good player. Is he healthy? Am I misremembering? I feel like he's healthy.
Shaq Thompson, you say? He's on
Yeah,
IR.
he is not healthy. So that was a terrible example that I just pulled out of my butt. Anyway, it's not like they don't like this is not like a team bereft of like good players defensively. But I was really shocked to see like, oh, for as much as like we can joke about like how bad the Panthers are, like they're in positions to win games as painfully as it has been this year. And especially when their secondary, JC Horn, who's the other corner that I forgetting? Um they kind of headline the secondary and have done their part in not getting burned from passing games. So basically, all that is to go to say why is the Panthers defense really good at not letting guys like, you know, a Christian Watson or Jaden Reed have a field day?
I think it comes down to coaching, right?
I would say so.
Because like JC Horn has had a tough time staying on the field. Oh, we talked about Shaq Thompson being out. Frankie Louvu is a big part of that as well, because he is great at cleaning up messes like in the middle of the field. And then Derek Brown and Brian Burns getting pressure on the quarterback, and you know, obviously, if a quarterback's running for their lives and or life and making a throw, uh, kind of with outside the framework of an offense, maybe that allows kind of your coverage to like settle into the chaos, and then your receivers aren't getting as much separation once they do catch the ball. That's a great question because I think it's been easy to overlook how talented the defense can be at times over the last few seasons because they're losing games and just looking terrible because the defense is on the field so much because the offense can't move the ball and sustain drives. I think we were having a conversation about this in the Discord weeks ago when the Packers offense was struggling, and someone was making the point that, you know, the offense and what it does for your defense like isn't a factor in that defense's performance. And I think that's probably a lot a big factor with what happens with the Panthers. But that's a really interesting stat, and I think if I had to have one answer, probably coaching. Avero is very highly regarded, and I think will probably, despite this, get head coaching looks in the next or few years, depending on what shakes out.
I thought it was interesting when you had talked about how if the Panthers receivers can get open and just like play against the zone that the Packers are going to come in and play, that it might be able to get him on track and like showcase a little bit more of his talent and stay and while staying upright if he can stay upright. And it led me to pull up this tweet that I had posted today talking about this is a graph that I had seen where the x-axis is man coverage separation prevented percentile, and the y-axis is zone coverage separation prevented percentile, and it's a list of all the cornerbacks who have played 175 coverage snaps. And in this, the three players from the Packers, there's four Packers on this, or I guess four Packers logos, one of which is Russell Douglas, who isn't on the team anymore. But the other three are Corey Ballantyne, Keyshawn Nixon, and Carrington Valentine. All three are below 50% by a hefty margin. Keyshawn Nixon is the only one above 25, and it's barely there. When it comes to zone separation prevention attempts, essentially. Basically, how often are you letting your receiver get open in zone versus how often are you letting your receiver get open in man? 75% of the time, those three players are at least 75% of the time letting their players get open in zone. When it comes to man, Carrington Valentine is holding his receiver down over 75% of the time, and Keyshawn Nixon is over 50. Corey Ballantyne is in the unique spot of being less than 50% on both. But it goes to show that when we got mad at how often they were running primary zone against the Buccaneers and all season, that like there's evidence to show that these guys can play man coverage, and they have always been able to play man coverage. Like Rasul in his Packers snaps, like in regards to this graph, is further to the right and was a more lockdown man corner than Carrington Valentine was, who is like the best man corner with enough coverage snaps to qualify on this team right now. And so, yeah, I think if Joe Barry wants to, I was going to swear, screw around and play zone against Adam Thielen and Jonathan Mingo, I think there could be a similar situation in which Adam Thielen, the veteran that he is able to find the soft spots in the zone and get open quite quickly for Bryce Young to be able to dink and dunk his way down the field, which I think could be good for him against this mean pass rush.
This is what Tommy DeVito did. He's making us have a good faith conversation about the Carolina Panthers offense having success.
Listen, I have no confidence in the secondary right now to be able to cover zone well. And I think I'm justified in having that opinion.
Yeah, I think we're all just fine. It is not. We're down bad. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's not great. It's not great. Um, for the Panthers defense, Andrew, a lot of rushing touchdowns. Has that been like noticeable, or is that somehow just kind of flown under the radar? They have 21 this year.
I think it's the like I said, them just being constantly on the field.
Oh
And
yeah,
I'm not a ball knower. Uh so like I have no stats to back this up. In baseball I might break out my uh calculator or my spreadsheets, but for football I'm just vibes, baby. Just vibes.
you don't care
So
about DVOA or
I mean
attempt yards, anything like that.
if I ever made an attempt to learn about advanced stats in football, I think I would get into it because like I like sports as like a whole tapestry, and on one corner of the tapestry can be, man, he's got that dog in him, and the other side of it can be, what's his DVOA or whatever you said for the team. I know it's a team stat, right?
Yeah, sure.
But so yeah, I love blending the two. So one day maybe, if the team's winning and I want to see stats that back them up. But yeah, I think it's just like they're always on the field and having to do so much, and the bend not break eventually does break when that can happen. And um, yeah, I think that's probably what I would attribute it to, just based on kind of how the flow of the games typically go for them.
I'd love to see an Aaron Jones week then, Jordan. Frankly,
It would be very helpful. It'd be very helpful that they could have a healthy running back room. We have no idea what's going on with Andrew Dillon. Kenyon Drake is talking about how he's the oldest
I
offensive
saw,
player.
I saw
And he's not
that.
even 30, which is just crazy. Like, yeah, we saw Aaron Jones start the game last week on the opening drive. 8 touches on the opening drive, had five for the rest of the game. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I have no idea what to guess with this ready attack at all.
Yeah, I think Adam Stenavich, if I can find the tweet quick, um, talked about how there were other issues. Yeah, here we go. This is from Ryan Wood today. This is on Thursday. Packers offensive coordinator Adam Stenavich says he's optimistic with Aaron Jones' health. This is the wrong tweet, my apologies, but he's optimistic about Aaron Jones' health late in the season. After coming out Sunday's game in good shape, quote, he's obviously a very big piece of this offense. So having him out there, he's been running the ball very well this week. He looks fresh. This is the quote or the tweet I was looking for. Still from Ryan Wood. Adam Stenavich didn't want to get into details on why Aaron Jones didn't get many carries after the opening drive on Sunday, but attrition after having 8 carries on the opening drive was not a factor. Quote, there were other factors that went into that. Whether it was, this is now me talking, whether it was play calling or anything else, who knows? But I think that's what they have to fix to actually make the offense kind of run as a well-oiled machine like they were during that winning streak and how they haven't looked the past 2 weeks. Like, I think they just have to figure out a way to get the run to stop the pass going more. I know that's a very old adage in football talk, just to establish the run to stop the pass. But I think especially with how LaFleur runs this type of offense, it really does ring true because they do so much stuff with play action pass, as well as bootlegs and other designed, I guess, funniness, we'll call it, in the backfield between Jaden Reed push passes and end arounds at least once or twice a game. So, yeah, having Aaron Jones back at least would be helpful. Patrick Taylor has been good, in my opinion, and if he can continue that, that'd be helpful as well. Probably no Emmanuel Wilson back this week. I'd be very surprised if that was the case. But then, yeah, maybe see if Kenny Drake can at least do some kickstarting to get some runs going if Aaron Jones is still going to be somewhat limited in the play calls this week.
Yeah.
Let's see. Andrew, what are you most looking forward to from a game planning perspective, whether it's offense or defense, as it comes when it comes to the Panthers? Is there something that you are looking forward to see develop, or is there something that you are looking forward to, I guess, finding resolution on? Anything like as um, a season long,
Former season ticket holder.
a former season ticket holder. Anything like you're looking to see improved upon? Obviously, besides everything, everything is not a good answer.
Former and future, because we have the personal seat licenses, so I've got that
Oh, that's
till
right.
I'm dead. Till I'm dead. So, just took a break. Um, Continued development from Bryce and just like any sliver of anything that we can like say, oh, that's something to build off of. Every good throw right now is something to celebrate. It's sad, but that's where we're at. Also, I want to see if Jonathan Mingo continues to get more targets. I was excited about that pick when they took him in the draft. I was actually at a concert when that happened, and someone texted me. It's like, "We got Mingo from Ole Miss." I was like, "Yeah, he's gonna be the guy."
Yeah.
Bryce Young and Mingo. That's our future. Um, as you guys know, I'm a college football watcher as well. Sorry to any Badgers fans listening, but you did have a good recruiting class. It seems like so top
Apparently.
25. I think that's good. Um, yeah, so yeah, Mingo, Bryce Young, Chuba Hubbard's had a good year. I hope to see that continue, and then just hopefully the offensive line can give Bryce time to throw, and at the very least, don't let him get hurt. I hope the turf in Charlotte is not as rock hard as it was on last Christmas Eve against the Detroit Lions, when I think there was some kind of thing submitted to the league complaining about the condition of the turf.
I hate
That
that.
turf is apparently terrible. Uh, I hate that they have turf there. I wish it was grass, obviously. As Jordan well knows, I sadly support Charlotte FC as well, who David Tepper also owns. So I don't love watching soccer on turf either. So it's all year. David Tepper gets to torment me, is what the moral of that story is. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking forward
Yeah.
to. I'm going to Charlotte. I live in the Triangle area of North Carolina. It's about a 2 hour drive from Charlotte. My buddy um, is from Denver and big Nuggets fan. And so we're going to go see Jokic take on the Hornets on the 23rd. We are not sticking around for this game. We got to get back for holiday festivities. So I will be watching that one on TV.
Got it. But yeah, go ahead.
To Andrew's point, I found the context of. So J.C. Treader is the president of the NFLPA.
Former Packer.
Yes, former Packer. He wrote an article last offseason about the league knowing that the Panthers had unsafe conditions for the field. So there's this thing called the Clegg test, which measures the hardness of the field. If the Clegg test registers a hardness above 100 G, I don't know what the G is. Maybe it's not grams. I don't know. The field condition is deemed unsafe. Units of gravity. That's what it is. When the field for Carolina was tested before the game, it came back 150 units of gravity.
That's
So an
super
incredibly
cool.
hard surface that I am not. I got another thing to worry about now. Fuck,
So-
this is not fun. This is not fun.
I think what happened is they melted the Jerry Richardson statue and then scattered it like ashes across the turf.
Like a rink.
Yeah. So
They
it's
just
like
playing on a melted. I don't even know what that would be. What was it?
Bronze.
you just see an eyeball staring
Bronze?
up at you as you're in the red zone.
Where do you think the testicles came from, Jordan?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, one of the paws is like a pylon, like where you have to like hit, get in the end.
Go ahead.
Next time I go to Bank of America Stadium, which I think will be February 24th for the MLS opener, I'm gonna see if I can get a picture of me just like straddling the Panther like I'm riding it like a horse, and then I'll send you a photo of that. If they eject me, they eject me. Come what may.
Jeez Louise. I love it. All right. We still have to do players to watch and score predictions. So, Andrew, you're up first. as the guest
as
of
our
honor.
guest.
Who is one of your players to watch in this game? You need one for the Panthers and one for the Packers.
For the Panthers, I'm gonna go with Brian Burns, a guy who will get paid somewhere. I don't know if they're in a position where they'll probably have to franchise tag him next season. I don't know the status of that. That we've wondered if they were going to trade him at the deadline um, for 2 seasons in a row now. And the Rams were purported to have offered 2 first-round picks for him last year. So
That's crazy.
might have missed an opportunity there, but whatever.
Scott Farrer was like, "No, I rather deal the picks here, good sir."
Exactly. That's exactly what happened. When he's engaged and getting into the backfield and pressuring the quarterback, he's so fun to watch. And can wreak havoc, sacks, fumbles, whatever it may be. So he's my one to watch for the Panthers. And on the other side of the ball, I'm going to pick the obvious one. I'm going to go Jordan Love because, like, I think he could have a big day. And I know you had the stat about limiting yards after the catch and things like that, but back-to-back losses in games that the team probably thought that they should have won, and maybe Love gets into a kind of FU mode and wants to go out there and just like really put the team on his back. So, and I'll say this as well. As I said, I'm not a football knower. I jinxed Joe Burrow's career by picking him to win MVP before the season, so apologies to him. But I was skeptical on Jordan Love going into the season, and I really liked a lot of what I've seen. And like, I love Love. So there you go.
Man, I would be thrilled for a Jordan Love FU game. An absolute thrilled to be to watch that happen.
Pass that click test. Yeah. What? What? That's the name of the thing.
I know it's Jordan. Who are your players to watch?
Panthers. I'm gonna go Chuba. Is it Chuba or Chuba?
Chuba.
Chuba Hubbard. Yeah, I just think last week was not much concern because Baker Mayfield threw all over this defense.
I mean, Rachaad White had just as good of a game.
Yeah, I was gonna say he was very productive in both in the running game and the passing game. Miles Sanders, who I did have high hopes for. I've always liked him coming out of Philadelphia. I thought that was a solid signing for him. Just for whatever reason, just has not happened. Chalk that up to Fitterer. But I have always liked Chuba Hubbard. I think he's a very productive running back, and he just kind of instills this fear of God in me because I think there's going to be so much attention towards how do the Packers defend Bryce Young? What is the zone coverage, or what is the secondary? How do they take away the threats in the passing game? And I think Chuba Hubbard could just run through the middle of this defense and kind of get what he wants. So that's my Panthers to watch. I'm always trying to think of like new names for the Packers. I'm gonna go with my boy Tucker Kraft.
Okay.
All in on the Tucker Kraft experience. I have nothing but good things to say about him. I think he's doing really well. Coming off, I mean, he was nominated for a cheese performance.
That's right.
I think he is going to be very key to Jordan Love getting comfortable, finding those kind of outlet passes, especially with, we talked about the Panthers' success about limiting opposing wideouts. Packers, again, will probably not have Christian Watson, considering he has not practiced all week. Jaden Reed is similarly has some bumps and bruises and all that stuff that he's continuing to battle through. As much as I was battling through that sentence, I think Tucker Kraft will be very key to whether it's red zone targets or just kind of helping Jordan Love get comfortable against this Panthers defense. I think him showing what he has shown over the last few weeks since basically Luke Musgrave has been hurt, I think that'd be very helpful for this Packers offense. So Tucker Kraft it is.
I'm there with you. I wasn't gonna pick him, but I'm definitely here for him as a player to watch. My two players are going to be first up, Aaron Jones, trying to see him get back on track, have a big day, hopefully against Andrew's Panthers defense. That's no offense. I just hope he gets back on track for some good mojo to end the season. And if that puts him on track for maybe another year at the organization and a healthier next year, I'm all for it. And then Devontae Wyatt. I'm really excited to see if any of those four that I talked about earlier, Rashawn Gary, Devontae Wyatt, Kenny Clark, and Preston Smith, if they can get home as often as other teams have been and really bump up that sack rate that they've boasted, I'd be excited to see that too. I've just been here for a Devontae Wyatt breakout game where he really has an amazing impact in the sacks, forcing fumbles or anything like that. So I just want to hear his name called a lot on Sunday. Frankly, is where I'm at with Devontae Wyatt. So yeah, I said two Packers though. I didn't pick a Panther. So I guess I'll go with.
Like two truths and a lie. Two
I know.
Packers and a Panther.
Eddie Pinheiro, Johnny Hecker.
Oh God. I think Adam Thielen will be my Panther. I will just keep the two Packers and then Adam Thielen because I've praised Thielen all season long about his ability to.
You had a feeling about him.
I did have a feeling about him. His ability is just to up Bryce Young's game as much as he can, and he's the lone veteran on this team that can find the soft spots in the zone. So if they go out and play soft zone, I think Adam Thielen will have no problem trying to find those spots and finding easy completions for his quarterback. So all that being said, Andrew, what's the score going to be on Sunday?
Packers 24, Panthers 6.
6?
Oh,
Yeah, we just won a football game 9-7.
I guess. I suppose.
Two field goals.
Jordan?
2 field goals. To be fair, too, they did score 6 points against the Saints 2 weeks ago.
I will say.
They're on a tear of single digits, according to Andrew's prediction.
Correct. But I will say, when you had talked about them playing games like they've been in games this year, they've had 6 games where they've lost one possession games. And so they do stick around in some of these games. A lot of them have come earlier in the season, but they lost 28-1 against the Buccaneers, 17-10 against the Titans, 16-13 to the Bears. They won 15-13 against the Texans.
Yeah, many people forget Bryce Young is 1-0 against CJ Stroud. So
So they're in games I think
he may be losing the war, but he won the battle.
So we'll see. I guess Jordan, what is your prediction?
I think this is an eggshells game. I think this
I'm not sure what that means, but go for it.
Well, I think that the field surface is going to be equivalent to walking on eggshells. Everybody's going to be smashing grass bits to pieces. Anyway, no, I'm saying I think this is a very tight, trepidatious game from a Packers perspective. I would hopefully not like to see a tight Jordan Love because I think that's where it's just very palpable when you see him uncomfortable. We've seen this.
Very clear.
I'm going to go Packers. Packers 20. Let's go Panthers 10.
Another low-scoring Packers affair.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Packers 31, Panthers 16. That's what I'm going for. I
feel like this is the only game this year, and maybe this is just because of the Panthers being the worst team in the league. I have no feel for this game. I have absolutely none.
I just don't think I have expectations for this game. My expectation is that they win, but I don't know how they're going to win.
Therefore, you have expectations.
But I just don't know how they're going to win, or I don't you know what I mean? They should win. Honestly,
they should.
Do I expect them to? I honestly couldn't tell you, Jordan. They should win this game, but they also should have beat the Giants on the road, and they also should have won against the Buccaneers. So expecting them to win might have been a bridge.
Buccaneers are a little bit more defensive. It
is a bit more defensive, but the Giants one is not.
No, it's not.
This is the same scenario as the
If I
Giants game.
see Tommy DeVito's agent on my Twitter screen one more time,
He's got the
one
cool,
more time.
He's got the cool hat.
Oh, it's great. It's wonderful.
Andrew, what is your feeling on Tommy DeVito and his hat? And his agent's hat?
None of it feels real. To be honest with you.
It feels like someone just like opened a portal door that's like, yeah, we're gonna have the living embodiment of Goofy come through wearing a fedora. Like that is what he looks like. He looks like a human Goofy.
I love that Tommy DeVito has also gotten, or I love it or do I hate it? I think I might be with Jordan that I hate it, but he had to like take away marketing responsibilities from this guy because he was like raising the price on like already agreed to meet and greets or whatever it was.
Yesterday's price is not today's price, Andrew.
The price of a brick is going
It's
up.
going up.
I think is exactly what happened. Jordan, privately for the listeners, the three of us communicate regularly via various channels. Like I told the listeners, the TOTT guys off the mic, just wonderful people. But me and Jordan have both been going through Sopranos rewatches
Yes.
the last few months. So seeing all this happen and then seeing like the fake report that like Tommy DeVito had told the Giants to knock it off with all the Italian stuff was so funny because it
Wait, is
sounded
that
like it
real?
could be real.
That is
no,
real.
it wasn't real.
It wasn't real.
It was a parody account, I think.
Oh, I thought that was real.
But and then you see the trademark stuff today. What was it like? Passing paisanos and something
my
else. I can't remember.
God.
It's just it's so 2023 where you can't get a sense of what is reality and what isn't reality. That it's honestly perfect, especially for this football season because this has been a weird football season where I'm like, is anybody good other than the team coached by Kyle Shanahan?
No,
Yeah.
I don't think so. But that's football.
Yeah.
All right, folks, that does it for us. Andrew, where can the people find you? You already gave a plug for our favorite Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Where else can people find you?
Yeah, so at AC Snide on Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube, it's
He
on your
loves
screen.
to tweet, by the way. Big tweeter.
I've been up in the tweet game a
You
lot more
have.
lately. Comedy and dog photos are kind of what like my two sweet spots are. First, I do want to say that just thank you guys for having me for a third time. I am a Panthers fan, but I have a soft spot for the Packers. My favorite player as a kid was Brett Favre. We talked about early sports memories. Super Bowl 31 was it against the Patriots that they won? Is that right?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
So obviously I was too young for that, as we talked about earlier. But my dad had it on VHS that he had recorded during the Super Bowl, like one of those where you like write the title on a white slip of paper
Yeah.
right in
Yes.
front of it.
Yep.
And that was a frequent rewatch when I started getting into sports. I would just put that game on, Drew Bledsoe turning it over for fun, Dorsey Levens, Antonio Freeman. Packers Nation. I might be a Panthers fan, but I got appreciation for you. Yeah, and then Cruising for Bruising, me and Adam talking about the Brewers. Had an episode drop this week about some of the small moves they've made. Make time for this also with Adam McGee, where we talk movies. We'll have one next week about the movies of Todd Haynes and his most recent film on Netflix, May December. And then maybe I pop into Bucks stuff every now and then because I love the Bucks. I'll be in Milwaukee in January to see 3 Bucks games, and I couldn't be more excited. They just beat the Magic, so go Bucks, go Pack, go. Who cares?
That's right, baby. That's right. As Andrew said, check out the Bucks feed with Ty and Rohan and Adam and Jordan for winning 6 in the Eurostep for Ty and Rohan. GSPN info to find all of that. Go follow all the pods. Go follow all the pod accounts on Twitter. Yeah, I think that is what does it. So thanks for listening again. With the holidays coming up, I get to try my hand out at a solo pod next week.
Oh.
So
Let's go.
be sure to look for that in your podcast feeds. Christmas morning, you can unwrap it, put your little headphones in, and warm up with a nice hot cocoa as your kids unwrap presents. You can have your headphones in, listening to me talk about hopefully a win. So that'll just about do it for us. Thank you again, you guys all for listening. And Andrew, Jordan, thank you guys.
Thank you.